to welcome you to the opening ceremony of the TUFH 2019 Conference of the Network. My name is Narelle Campbell. I'm the academic lead for Flinders NT, who are hosting this conference here in beautiful Darwin. I want to thank you for coming tonight to celebrate. It's going to be a fabulous event, not just tonight, but the next 3 days as well. The conference is being held on Larrakia land. The traditional custodians of this region, this country, and I'm honoured now to hand the microphone to Janine McClellan and Trent Lee of the Larrakia Nation to give us a welcome to country and a smoking ceremony.
Thank you and good evening, everyone. My name is Janine McClellan and this is Trent Lee, and he'll be doing the didgeridoo and smoking ceremony after my welcome to country. But firstly, as a Larrakia woman, I acknowledge my past, present and future Larrakia elders and families of our lands and waters. I'd also like to acknowledge all cultures who have come here today from across the road to across the lands and seas, and pay my respect to your past, present and future elders of your lands and waters. I've been invited here this evening to represent the Larrakia people and welcome you all here to our country. On behalf of our Larrakia elders and families, welcome, welcome, welcome to our beautiful Darwin, the saltwater people country. Traditionally, we would welcome you to a beach for a traditional welcome to country by washing your hands and wiping your sweat back into the salt water, so our ancestors know you are our own country. So please be welcome to venture down to our beautiful beaches, wash your hands and wipe your sweat back into the salt water, so our ancestors know you are on country. But please be careful of our totem, the Dungalaba, the crocodile. I don't think we've had much sighting, so you'll be right. So the Larrakia people wishes you all the best at the Towards Unity for Health conference, and the importance of coming together and sharing your stories of health within your communities across the world. And what a beautiful sight of traditions we have here to make this conference and gathering an experience of a lifetime. Embrace this experience and embrace the new friendships you will make. In conclusion, I'd like to quote a poem from a Larrakia elder, the late Reverend Worley. As to myself and a lot of Larrakia families, the poem is about times here on our country, and that yes, we are a city, but many people live and visit in Darwin, and we all have stories from Larrakia country. You've come by way of the Larrakia land. You hear voices of Larrakia ancestors. When you leave, the Larrakia message will stay with you. On behalf of the Larrakia families, thank you for acknowledging the Larrakia people, and may your journey on our country be safe. Trent now is lighting the sticks for a traditional smoking ceremony. Trent will be lighting it by traditional way with fire, with the sticks. And let there be fire. See, it is possible. You can survive. So Trent now is putting some green ironwood leaves on it. Would invite you to all to come around and put some smoke onto yourself. This is a traditional way of bearing away the evil spirits, and so you're free and safe here on our Larrakia country. So by all means, come walk by and just put some smoke on you. Our one mob dancers will lead the way.
Please join me in thanking Janine and Trent for that welcome to country. You're now very privileged to observe the performance skills of One Mob, Different Country. One Mob, Different Country is a program that has been operating out of the Darwin Correctional Centre for approximately 12 years. This program allows low-security Indigenous prisoners who have exhibited good behaviour, demonstrated good behaviour, to take part in performing traditional Aboriginal dances at events, such as community events, government and not-for-profit events. The dancers have been given permission from the elders of their communities, from the Beswick and Barunga communities, to perform certain dances and songs from that region. The name One Mob, Different Country refers to the fact that the dancers themselves come from different communities, different country, but they come together as one group to dance. One Mob. The dancers are not paid to perform. Instead, the funds go to the Department of Correctional Services to support this enterprise and to build capacity and create a positive, sustainable future for those in the program. Please welcome One Mob, Different Country.
Ready? White Palaga! White Palaga! White Palaga! Jela ora gauro bora. Pere bo maraje bagara jere mele. White Palaga jela ora pere bo. White Palaga, jela ora jela. White Palaga, kauro bora. Pere bo bara jeva era pere bo gara, oro pere bo gara. Oh, White Palaga, jela ora jela. White Palaga,
that
All right.
dancing at sunset.
Sunset.
She wanted that dancing at sunset Jabana. Oh, sunset at Jabana. Oh, Jabana. Jabana. Oh, Kalangare. Two. Last. Jabana. Jabana, Jabana, re bare bare, Jabana. Last one. Oke, jadi pelah cek Newton.
Ceknya mari ikut terang.
Jabana. Reba, kalangare. Jabana, Jabana. Reba, 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 Jabana. Reba, reba, kalangare. Donde Jabana kalangare. Reba, reba, Jabana. Donde wa Rama Jegoro. Donde Jabana. Jabana, reba, reba, Jabana. Wa Rama Jegoro. Reba, Jabana.
Take it down. You never take it down.
Thank you, One Mob, Different Country. Thank you very much. Flinders NT is honoured to be the host for this, the 40th anniversary conference of the network. The theme of the conference, From Evidence to Action, speaks to the vision and values held by both Flinders NT and the network. We are both committed to reducing health and educational inequalities. This means a focus on Indigenous peoples, on workforce provision that meets community needs, on contemporary approaches to education, and on engagement and collaboration to figure out the best way forward for our communities and with our communities and in our communities. It was nearly 2 years ago that Flinders Northern Territory started working with the network to plan this conference. Thank you to everyone who has made this day possible. The members of the organising committee, the members of the scientific committee, the people who reviewed abstracts, the students, the volunteers, the paid staff. This ceremony represents the culmination of many hundreds of hours of work at all hours of the day and night as we are joined across time zones around the world to plan this event. Together, we are all going to make this conference fabulous. We are amongst friends. We, you, have all come from many regions of the world, and I encourage you to use your time at the conference to learn from each other, to grow connections that will benefit you and the communities and the services who sent you here. On behalf of Flinders, thank you for being here. And it is now my privilege to introduce a number of members of the network who have some short speeches to make about the importance of this event. So I want to start by introducing Professor Henry Campos, who is the Secretary General of the network TUFH.
Thank you, Narelle. Hello, everyone. It's my honor and privilege as I finish my term as Secretary General of our organization to welcome all of you to this conference that celebrates our 40th anniversary. I think that during these 4 days we will have a lot of exchange, and as usually happens at the end of the conference, we will go back home a little bit transformed by the exchanges, by the different experiences, and by learning from each other. I'd like to, on behalf of the board of directors, of the advisory board, to thank Flinders for this wonderful job in organizing this conference, and we already feel at home at this great country. Thank you.
Sorry. Thank you, Henry. Please join me in welcoming Vishnupriya Vijay Lakshmi, who is the President of the Student Network Association, whom we came to learn as SNOW.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and Namaste from India. We, the Network Towards Unity for Health, the interdisciplinary community of leaders, young enthusiasts, academic institutions, and community organizations who are progressively striving towards setting the framework for an equitable healthcare by tackling the challenges in a holistic and collaborative manner, is converging again after a year at Flinders University, Darwin, in the beautiful land of Australia. Every meeting is unique as it's a coherent consolidation of the prodigious effort that our global community has been making with the common goal of advancing health regionally and globally. But this time, I would like to call it phenomenal, and it's my extreme privilege to welcome all of you to join us in the celebration of the 40 years of amalgamation of ideas which propel a wave of innovation by addressing the barriers in the realm of community empowerment and the instigation of a series of trailblazing discussions which will grease the wheels for a solution to the health problems in today's world. The seeds of the proposals that we sow today become the trees of transformation of tomorrow. And the young leaders of today, the students, become the change makers of future. Equipping ourselves with the capabilities and skills that we need to empower the underserved, be the voice for the vulnerable, and be the key players of the metamorphosis that we need to see in the world is a need of the hour, and it requires unwavering dynamism and teamwork. As a representative of your community, I invite all my peers, my dear students, to this quintessential platform of learning, strategic planning, and networking, which will provide you the impetus to formulate strategies on how you can move closer towards the attainment of your goals. So let's kickstart the 2019 annual meeting and the 40th anniversary celebration by acknowledging the tremendous support that Flinders University is providing us as a wonderful host and the robust effort of the conference organizing committee. Once again, I extend a cheerful welcome to all of you. Have a pleasant stay in Darwin. Let's enjoy, educate, and empower ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you, Vishnu. Please welcome Art Kaufman, who is the 40th anniversary chair of the network.
Thank you. This is an extraordinary time in the history of the network. 40 years is extraordinary. And I know that we all come here once a year and we recharge our batteries because we have to go back to our home communities and fight the battles. But once a year we get together and are among kindred spirits from around the world. And that is extraordinary for this organization to have lasted this long. And we have our young people, which is kind of the energy that drives us. And then we have old people like me. And then we keep coming back, getting younger each year. But sometimes we lose some of our dear friends. And this year we lost two important colleagues. And one of them was Dan Blumenthal. And he was from the University of Chicago, my alma mater, and he went into preventive medicine and pediatrics, and he was with the Communicable Disease Center, and he did smallpox eradication in India and the Sudan. But he came back and he worked in the traditional African-American medical school at Morehouse. And he spent his career teaching a real model of community health. And one time I had the pleasure of watching him teach, and I was mesmerized. This guy was incredible. And he passed this year. He was 77 years old. And then recently, we were sad to hear that David Sanders passed away just recently. And he was born and raised in Zimbabwe. And he was part of the resistance when the country changed. And then he also was a leader in integrating public health and medicine. He then moved to South Africa and worked at a number of medical schools there and was a leader in community health workers, in public health, and was such a driving force that we missed at this time. So I'd like to ask us all just for about 30 seconds of silence as we can think about these strong network members. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Art. It's now my privilege to invite Nicholas Torres, Executive Director of the network, to the stage. Thank you, Nicholas.
So welcome. As one of the newest members, I joined 9 months ago, so some might say I'm a newborn baby to the network of TUFH. Today is symbolic. We've all left our homes and our families to share our stories and our journeys of the local change we are each leading in our own respective communities. When you head home 4 days from now, it is our hope that you will be inspired to continue the journey of leading local action in your own communities. Global policy to local action is one of the underlying themes for 2019 through 2020. Local action is driven by you. Today is symbolic as it represents the first step of your journey. And remember, we will all be on similar journeys across the world. Collectively, our individual journeys will have an impact. And it all started today by you and the relationships you form in the next few days. They say one person can make a difference. With TUFH, we will join you on this journey. We will share our stories, support you in tough times, and celebrate your wins. Thank you, Flinders University. Thank you to the TUFH Board of Directors, the Advisory Board, to SNOW, and our partner institutions. And a special thanks to Aricia and Raymond, who have made today possible. So, thank you. And thank you to all our volunteers. Thank you. What? You do.
Of course, every conference needs sponsors, and we're very privileged to have the University of Queensland as our key sponsor, our platinum sponsor. And so I'd like to introduce Professor Sarah Strasser, OAM, as the University of Queensland's representative.
So it's a very special welcome from me to everyone who is here tonight. For those who don't know, I am Sarah Strasser, and I currently work for the University of Queensland. But just a few years ago, I worked for Flinders University and helped set up the Northern Territory Medical Program here. So it's kind of coming home for me, and it's an absolute delight to see you all here. I'd certainly like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land and pay my thanks to elders past, present and future. I'd also like to welcome and say thank you to Janine McLennan for our welcome to country, and also for the One Mob dancers who are just fantastic. I'd like to say thank you to the TUFH Council, who've been a little bit flexible about my requests. One of them is about having a Professor of Ethics as the ethicist in residence for the conference, and I hope that you'll all come and meet Sarah Winch. Just give a wave, Sarah, thank you. And be aware, UQ people, whether you're alumni or staff or faculty, you will all be waving by the end of it. I'd particularly like to thank Narelle and Eliza from Flinders, and Dave, who's just come to my rescue, as he always does, with ICT, from Flinders University to make this all possible when I know what a challenging situation you are in at the moment. So I am delighted to have been able to put the case to the University of Queensland, who's not exactly known for the social determinants of health and that sort of thing, but let you know we're on a change, okay? Yay! So anyone who has looked at the sponsorship brochure, the platinum sponsorship does not come cheaply. And, my head isn't quite in the noose yet, but, pretty well will be. But I have a few interesting little facts to tell you. That UQ is not that foreign to social medicine. It developed a Department of Social Medicine in 1936 as part of the Faculty of Medicine, which beats Oxford. If anyone is here from Oxford? No? Okay. UQ wins. Yay! Okay. And that Department of Social Medicine in 1936, Oxford was 1948, had the broad mission and advocated for social, political and economic policies to address the health problems of Queensland and the Australian population. So you'll all note that I have papers. I couldn't possibly read a phone, so good luck to everyone who can. Today, we are at a particular point of change with UQ because we're completing a complete revision of the UQ curriculum. So who here is a UQ graduate? Please stick up your hands. There are a few. Okay, that's good, because we'd like your input to be able to refresh the curriculum for 2022, which will include much more of a social accountability mandate, more meaningful clinical experiences and interprofessional education. This is nothing new to you guys, but it is new to them, so we'll lead the charge. I would like to introduce you to the UQ faculty and our very close friends, the CQU, Central Queensland University, who we're combining with to develop some new regional full 4-year medical programs in Queensland. This is historic. Can I tell you, we have tried 4 times to do this without success, so we're there now. So unfortunately, I don't think Professor Charles Gilks is here yet. Scanning the crowd, no, but he is the head of the School of Public Health, and it assures me he'll be here by tomorrow. We have Professor Jeff Argus, who I also think is probably not here yet, because he was in Geraldton only yesterday. But we do have Professor Bruce Chater, who is the head of the discipline of Rural and Remote Medicine. We do have Professor Sarah Winch, who I already introduced you to as the Professor of Health Ethics for the Faculty of Medicine. We do have Associate, not quite Professor yet, but never mind, very close, Matthew McGrail. And if anyone knows the geographic classification of Australia, the MMM classification, it's not the modified Monash, it's the modified Matthew McGrail classification. I have a little list. We've managed to bring 16 people from UQ. Professor Marie Toombs gives her sincere apologies. Her daughter forgot to tell her she was doing an exam and needed to have her mother's support. So Marie will be on by video conference tomorrow in our lunchtime session. of which the title is about why Indigenous health will not improve until Indigenous people are in charge of what should happen. I know this is all close to your hearts. We have Senior Lecturer Megan Ferguson, who I've yet to meet. Is she here? Can't see her, but she'll be part of the lunchtime session with Marie and Charles, and also Wayne Williams, who I also haven't seen here yet, but he will also be part of that lunchtime session. Do grab a meal and go and sit in for the lunchtime session tomorrow. The best news, to be honest, is we have the future of health professionals in Australia. We have 3 students here, 2 medical final year students and 1 dental final year students. So David, Jason and Kenny, please wave your arms. Yay! And then the person who leads the charge and organises us all is Miss Debbie Croydon, and I promise you we would not be here without her sheer management skills. So please visit our booth. There aren't very many freebies, but we're very interesting to talk to. And in addition to that, we have 2 colleagues from Central Queensland University. One, I gather, is at the Jet Chair Theatre. I'm not too impressed about that. But the other is Sonia. So Julia, where are you? There you are, hiding. And Sonia is the person that we're doing the new medical program with. So enjoy your next few days. I have to tell you, I was told initially I had 5 minutes, then I was told I had 10 minutes, then I was told I had 2 minutes, so I decided, take the lot. Thank you, Narelle.
Thank you, Sarah. I'm really happy now to be able to welcome a group that you've been seeing waiting patiently over on the side, on my left-hand side. The group's name is Upai Pari. Upai Pari is a Torres Strait Island dance group which was founded by Lola and Natalie Laisley in 2010. They wanted to create a group that could learn together about their culture, about songs and dances with performance opportunities. So Upai Pari started with lawyer Natalie and Natalie's 2 sons, Christopher and Enrique, and they now have 10 full-time dancers and several dancers in training. So together the families of these dancers represent the majority of the islands in the Torres Strait from the east to the west. Please welcome Upai Pari.
Nice, yeah, that should be fine. Thank you very much. Yeah. All right, good evening. Is it on? Yeah, sorry. Oh, there we go. Hello. Good evening, everybody. My name is Natalie. How are we all today? We all good? Yeah. Awesome. It looks like you guys have a wonderful conference ahead of you, and looks like you're having fun so far. Like the lovely lady said before, my mother and I started this group in 2010 with the intention of keeping our culture alive by passing the knowledge on to the next generation and the next. And so before we start, we'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land, the Larrakia people. And yeah, we'll start straight away. We'll get the little girls out. So some of our dances we do are just for girls, some just for boys, and some they do together. So you'll get a taste of a little bit of everything tonight. You can come right back this way a little bit. Spread out, girls. Beautiful. Thank you, ladies. Wami ala lima. Wami ala lima. Wami ala lima. Guba guba sena paguba. Guba guba sena paguba. Wami ala lima, Wamia la lima. Guba guba sena paguba. Guba guba sena paguba. Wamia la lima. Wamia la lima. Guba guba sena paguba. Guba guba sena paguba. Barrier. Yeah. And then the video one. So this next one's barrier. It's about the Great Barrier Reef. Barrier Reef. In a sec, slow down. So there were a couple of the girl dancers. We're going to swap them over now and we're going to bring the boys out. Just wait, Ruby. Slow down. You ready? Hup. 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 Uncle George, yeah? Hup. Hup. So the next one's called compressor, and this one's about the compressor to pump, will consistently pump air to the person under the water, so for the pearl diving industry. So before the electric compressor came along, they had somebody on board pumping water to the person down the bottom. And of course, if they got tired and they stopped, then the person down the bottom would suffocate, and that's not a good thing. So then the compressor came along, and that was just a way of constantly feeding air to the person down the bottom. So this one's called compressor. Papa nu kateka tiae chup chup anu eya sae kare enu katenu Namune compressor. kateka tiae. Chup, chup. Anu eya sae kare enu katenu eya o namone compresa papa nu kateka tiae. Chup, chup. We're going to bring the girls back out now. We're going to do a couple of fun little dances that you can participate in yourselves. You don't have to move. You can stay where you are. We'll bring the girls back out and we'll explain a little more. Hup. Hup. And you can go down the front. You can go down the front. And move on corner, yes. Thank you, girls. You may all take a seat. Oh, come on, boys, what happened? Did you forget you were coming out? Ah, silly duffers. Sit in between, one of you in between Dom and Freddie and take a seat, and the other one down the other end. Go down the other end, Connor. Connor, you go down there. More guys, stay there. More guys, stay there. Take a seat. Sit down. Good work. Yes, you may sit here, my sweetheart. They're new, they're in training, so we're teaching them how to do what we do. Okay, so this first one is called Sasa. It's one of our favourites, just one of our favourites. So this one you get to do a little pose at the end. So this one's basically about diving at the beach and like having fun, and then you come out of the water and then you see someone, you're like, and you want that person's attention. So the idea is to do a little pose at the end to get that person's attention. So you can do something cutesy, or some of the men like to flex, yes. And, oh sorry, girls can flex too before I get lectured by somebody. Girls can flex too. We also have muscles. So this one's called Sasa. The actions are quite simple, but we all need you to participate in the calling out at the start. So at the start, I ask everyone to pat their knees and rock their bodies, and then I'll ask what the magic word is. And normally you would say please, because please is the magic word. But for us, the magic word is Sasa. All right, so we'll say, what's the magic word? And everyone will say? Sasa. All right. And then the actions will go 1, 2, 3, quick taps on the knees and dive to the left. And then 1, 2, 3 and dive to the right. 1, 2, 3 and dive to the front. 1, 2, 3 and reach up high. Then 1, 2, 3, clap 1, 2, 3. Roll your hands and pose. A beautiful pose, any pose you like. We're going to do it 3 times. Let's give it a go. Pat your knees and rock your body from side to side. Up, left, 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 right, left, right, left, right, left. What's the magic word? Up, 1, 2, 3 to the left. 1, 2, 3 to the right. 1, 2, 3 to the front. 1, 2, 3 up high. 1, 2, 3 clap. 1, 2, 3. Roll your hands and pose. Beautiful posing out there. Oh, what was that? Let's go again. Pat your knees and rock your bodies from side to side. Up, left, 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 right, left, right, left, right, left. What's the magic word? Up, 1, 2, 3 to the left. 1, 2, 3 to the right. 1, 2, 3 to the front. 1, 2, 3 up high. 1, 2, 3 clap. 1, 2, 3. Roll your hands and pose. Nice posing there. One more time, everyone. Pat your knees and rock your bodies from side to side. Up, left, 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 right, left, right, left, right, left. What's the magic word? Up, 1, 2, 3 to the left. 1, 2, 3 to the right. 1, 2, 3 to the front. 1, 2, 3 up high. 1, 2, 3 clap. 1, 2, 3. Roll your hands and pose. Beautiful posing, everybody. Give yourselves a big round of applause.
Why would I give my applause?
You got to get off my arms like a drum. All right, the next one we're going to do is another little interactive one that's fairly easy. So with this one, you start over your left knee, which is, sorry, your left knee, my right. And you'll go 1, 2, 3, and bring the hands to the other side. 1, 2, 3, and then bring them back to the start. And scoop, flip, put it on your knee. And then the other side, scoop, flip, put it on your knee. And then we do 3 what we call Usain Bolts. 1, 2, 3. All right, and you got to look up too, like Usain. And then leave your left hand in the air, pat your knee, clap your hands, make a circle, and then knee, hand, 2 circles, and row your boat. So this one is about fishing with your mom. If you get lost, you can copy the kids. Pat your knees again. Pay a mama, pay a mama, pay a mama. Ili tuli mai, ili tuli mai. Pay a mama, pay a mama, pay a mama. 2 times and pull him. And again, let's go. Ili tuli mai, ili tuli mai. Pay a mama, pay a mama, pay a mama. 2 times and pull him. Last one, let's go. Ili tuli mai, ili tuli mai. Pay a mama, pay a mama, pay a mama. 2 times and pull him. Give the children a big round of applause. Wonderful effort tonight, guys. Dom, Ricky, you two want to do Yagi Koi? Yeah? No? Yeah? All right. So, no, you're sitting out this one. So I'm going to get the other children to disperse over to this direction. Stand up, little people. And we've got a nice little surprise to wrap it up for you. Hup. 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 Go, Morgan. You two come up here. Up here, everything. All right, our beautiful little fellas up here. Sorry, not little fellas anymore, both big boys now. Oh, no, sorry, one's still not 16 yet. You're not 16 yet, Ricky, all right? So these 2 beautiful leaders of ours, Enrique's been dancing with us for about 9 years, only because he's my son and he doesn't have a choice. And Dom's been dancing with us by choice. He chooses to participate. And he's been dancing with us for about 5, 6 years now. I think 6 years now. So the boys are going to do a rhythmic dance for you. And this one's from Saibai, which is closer to Papua New Guinea. And this one's called Yagi Koi. And normally I do this one with them, but I don't want to steal the show. Oh, it's a competition. It's a massive competition between the 3 of us. You ready? Good work, boys. Thank you all very much. I hope you enjoyed the show. Wear Upai Puri and enjoy the rest of your conference. Mak time. Hup. Hup. Ah. Show off. Thank you all.
Thank you, Upai Puri. We hope that we've given you some glimpses into strong culture as a contributor to good health outcomes. It's now my pleasure to introduce our very first keynote for the TUFH 2019, Emeritus Professor Paul Worley, who is the National Rural Health Commissioner, in fact, the inaugural Rural Health Commissioner in Australia, and he's held that position since 2017. For the 10 years prior to that, he was the Dean of the School of Medicine at Flinders University in South Australia, where he established rural clinical schools and university departments of health, both in South Australia and here in the Northern Territory, and he guided the conceptualisation and development of the Northern Territory Medical Program, which has a focus on recruiting and supporting Indigenous students and staff. While at Flinders, Professor Worley developed and nurtured programs which are now recognised globally, and I know many of you are personally acquainted with Paul. These are models for rural medical, nursing and allied health education. In addition, he has held senior positions in the Rural Doctors Association of South Australia and the Australian College of Rural and Remote Medicine. He is Editor-in-Chief of the International Journal Rural and Remote Health and is an elected Fellow of the Australian Academy of Health and Medical Sciences. Please warmly welcome Emeritus Professor Paul Worley.
Thank you. Thank you very much. A beautiful evening. Some lovely company, some wonderful dance. What better way to start celebrating 40 years of achievement for an organisation? An organisation that, in the words of Yuval Harari, a historian, would say is a fiction of our imagination. So I'm not being insulting when I'm saying that the network is a fiction, because I'm also going to say that our universities are a fiction. In fact, our countries and our states, by this same definition, are a fiction of our imagination. A collective fiction of our collective imaginations. But you may say that that is a problem, isn't it, if there's nothing real about this organisation? Harari's not saying there's nothing real, it's just the nature of that reality is constructed by us. And that gives us opportunities, because whenever something is constructed by a collective human imagination, the limits of that organisation and the limits of what that organisation can do for society are only limited by the collective imaginations of the people in that organisation. I want to quote a poem to start with, and I'll come back to Harari to finish. The poem is by one of our Australian poets, and many of you in Australia will know it. For those from overseas, it'll give you a flavour of our country. It goes like this: I love a sunburnt country, a land of flowing plains, of ragged mountain ranges, of droughts and flooding rains. I love her far horizons, I love her jewelled sea, her beauty and her terror, the wide brown land for me. How can something be at the same time beautiful and terrible? Could it be that the same thing is beautiful for one person but terrifying for another? We know that in many areas of the world, your postcode predicts your prognosis. Your standard of living, your health, could be a beautiful thing for one person and a terror for another. And not based on what you have done, but based on where you were born, based on where you were raised. Is that fair? Is that just? Is it right that those same people whose postcode may well predict their prognosis also have an inadequate opportunity to participate in the economic development of their country? It's not just a health inequality that we're talking about, it's also an economic inequality that we are talking about. I know that this is not new to many of you, and I know that ideas on how to change it are not short in a meeting like this, in an organisation like this. But I sense that why we are here is not to learn about ideas, but to think more carefully and perhaps reflect on how do we turn those ideas into something that actually makes a difference. How do we actually move from the evidence to the action, to implementation? So I thought, as your first speaker, I would be somewhat provocative and give you some reflections on a number of the innovations I've had the privilege to be part of, the ideas I've had the opportunity to put into practice, and to reflect perhaps why that was so. What were the key learnings that I can draw from moving from an idea, and we have plenty of those, to something that actually happens, that actually is implemented, that actually makes a difference in people's lives. Jared was a medical student, and he was part of one of the programs that we set up at Flinders, which enabled students to have a year based in primary care rather than the standard hospital rotations. As part of that year, he was in the nurses' station of a small hospital and was told by one of the nursing staff, look, you can see any of the patients in the ward, just don't go into that particular room there. Why, he asked. Oh, that lady is dying, and it would be inappropriate for a medical student to interrupt what is a very precious and important time in that family's life for the sake of learning medicine. He went, okay, that's fine. And he put his head down and looked at the notes and was going about seeing some of the other patients. While he was sitting there, though, that lady's son came out of the room and said to the medical student, Mum wants you to come in to the room. He came into the room. All Mum wanted was for him to hold her hand. And he was privileged to be able to be there at the time that that lady died. And she wanted him, the medical student, to be there. We underestimate the opportunities and the capacity for our students to give while they are students. And therefore we underestimate the opportunities that we have potentially as curriculum developers to transform the lives of our students, because that was a transformational experience for that student. Why was he invited in? He was invited in because he had known that lady when the diagnosis was originally made. He was then there when the chemotherapy was trialled. He was there when the chemotherapy failed. He was there when the radiotherapy was started. He was there when the radiotherapy was stopped. He knew that lady better than the doctors knew that lady. He had a relationship. We underestimate the capacity for our students to develop those relationships. That's, to me, a transformative education experience. I think of Frank and Marjorie Drew, two doctors who had grown up in Melbourne, trained at the Royal Melbourne, and were practicing just out of Melbourne, and decided that part of their vocation was to move the whole way across the country to a small town called Roebourne, which is on the northern border of Western Australia. For those of you from outside of our country, that's probably 3,000 kilometres from where they had grown up and where they had worked. They went to work in a predominantly Aboriginal community to serve the people. What was it that caused those graduates to move when so many of their peers stayed in the comfort of Melbourne, stayed in the comfort of their specialties and their hospitals where they had trained? What was it that transformed those people? These are the questions that we ask as educators, are they not? Because they are the type of graduates that we are wanting to see come out of our programs. Graduates who are prepared to understand where the need is, who are prepared to equip themselves to meet those needs, and what's more, to be part of that solution. Not just part of counting the demise, but part of the solution. In rural and remote Australia, in every 100,000 people, there are 150 more each year who die from avoidable causes of death compared to people who live in the cities. Just let me say that again. Out of 100,000 people, about the size of Darwin, this city, small city, if you were in a major city, there would be 100 people who had an avoidable death. If you were in a remote area of 100,000, there are 250. That basically, there's about 150 people here. That means all of you would unnecessarily die in the next year out of 100,000 people. If you knew that was going to happen to you, would you just still be sitting here drinking, sipping away, applauding the dancing? This is nice. Let's talk about what investment I need to make, what's happening with my mortgage, my superannuation, etc. I don't think so. If that was actually you who were part of those 150, there would be a passion to do something about it. So there's a not in my backyard phenomenon that occurs in all of us, where we think, well, that's not going to happen to me. But it does. It happens to our families, and it happens to people that we love. So what is it that can take your ideas for how to make these changes, how to make these transformations, and turn them into something that actually does make a difference? It's great to be here on Larrakia land, and I honour and respect the people who have welcomed us here. I come from Ghana country, which is 3,000 kilometres south of here, and a mighty sight colder than it is at the moment. Although I must say, it's beautiful and cool here in Darwin for this time of year. It's lovely. I would like us to think of our organisations as people. As Harari says, they are legal fictions. They are people that we have invented for the purpose of having an institution. But not in the way we would potentially think of them, but how does an Indigenous person think of the whole person? And when I say I'm analysing it from this perspective, I'm analysing it from what I've learnt from Indigenous people. I'm not pretending to analyse it as an Indigenous person. But from what I have learnt from Indigenous people, there is a holism about the way they view people and the way they view our world. And that is that it's not just a biological phenomenon. It's not even just an emotional and biological phenomenon or a social and emotional and biological phenomenon, but it is a bio-psycho-socio-spiritual phenomenon. That understanding of who we are and where we are underpins a lot of what I've learnt from Aboriginal people. So if we're looking at educational transformation, how could we analyse our institutions, our organisations, under that bio-psycho-socio-spiritual understanding? Because we all know, did anyone see the big ocean liners that were here earlier today? Huge. Aren't our institutions a bit like that? If we want to try and turn them, they somehow feel as they're always going in just one direction, and to get them to turn is almost impossible. So how do we do it? I think there is something that we can really learn from that bio-psycho-socio-spiritual understanding. So the biological. What is it about the structure and the DNA, if you like, of our organisation that we need to understand in order to be able to make our innovation happen? The key question here is, what problem am I trying to solve? Not what idea do I have, but what problem for our organisation am I trying to solve? And the closer it gets to the survival, the biological survival of the organisation, the more likely you are to be able to initiate your innovation. So if I look at many of the innovations that have occurred in Australia in terms of creating rural campuses, where rural communities can actually participate with a full medical program across Australia. Have they occurred because of the generosity and goodwill of our institutions based in cities? No. They have occurred out of fear. Fear of survival. Fear of another university having a medical school in that place instead. Is that something that we need to wash our hands and say, we're not going to get involved in that sort of thing as educational innovators? Well, if you want your innovation to happen, sometimes you have to be prepared to look at what are the alternatives and make the alternatives play into your organisation. What is biological death to one part of your organisation may be different to another. So when we were looking at establishing a one-year program based in rural primary care instead of in the tertiary hospital, what was it that motivated the hospital to let us do this? Their problem, their existential problem, was that they had too many students and they were burning out teaching on the wards. So if I took a few of their students and sent them out to a rural place, they had an easier life. They could get on with their clinical care, they could get on with their research. So I had to listen to what the existential problem was from their perspective. Not from my perspective. My perspective was all about encouraging students to take up a rural career. Their perspective was easing the pressure on their ward teaching and their ward work. We have to understand those imperatives from the perspective of the institution and be prepared to play in the sandpit of the politic. Timing is absolutely crucial as well. What is important to the funders of educational programs? Most of our educational programs get funded by government one way or another. What is important to them? Their existential crisis is election. Their existential crisis is election. So their point of coming to see what we see as important is when it affects whether they are going to get elected or not. So, if there is competition in rural seats for the electoral spots, you are more likely to get funding. If rural communities are taken for granted because they never vote differently, then you are less likely to get funding, irrespective of the health outcome figures or all of those other figures. So as medical educators, we need to be engaged in that political process. This is not a cynical process. This is a real process. This is a real process. It's just not our usual perspective. So biological, it's about real, it's about reality. Psychological. What are the psychological drivers of our organisations? One of the things, if you ask a Vice-Chancellor, what is the thing that they fear? The thing they fear is a student revolt. Students have enormous power within our institutions. Therefore, if we have students behind us, students saying, we want to do this, we are prepared to take a risk with our education because we see the benefits in this, that will drive people above us to accept that this might be a change that's worthwhile having. But what might be in it apart from fear for an educational institution? What other values do they have in their psyche? Don't know about you, but two that are very common are research and status. Research, absolutely crucial. So let's cast our educational innovations as research projects. That's what I've done with a number of the pieces of work that I've done. They have been cast within the institution as a research project, as an experiment. Let's not be frightened of the experiment, but appeal to the psyche of our organisations. Status. For a small institution, they love internationalisation. They love relationships with larger organisations. That's what this organisation can provide in spades. Through collaborating with other organisations of equal or higher status, you can bring a lot of status to your institution, and then your idea suddenly gets legs because it's bringing the reputation of others along with it. It's not just your innovator's reputation, but it's now the innovators of multiple schools around the globe, bringing them to your school. So think about the psyche of the organisation, the social aspects of your organisation. The key drivers of our programs are the people we are looking to be accountable to. Who are we looking to be accountable to? The communities we serve. The work that we did in Australia, a number of you would have seen the work that has been done and the investment that the Commonwealth Government has made in rural clinical schools. Billions of dollars invested in enabling 25% of medical students to have 1 year of their curriculum based in rural and remote Australia. How did that come about? It came about firstly by creating some evidence of a very small pilot. A very small pilot. Being under the radar in terms of the social networks in an institution is important until you get your evidence. You have to avoid the institution's immune system because otherwise it will spit you out very quickly. So we did our pilot with 8 students in the Riverland and proved in actual fact that they did very well. But that wouldn't have changed Australia. What changed Australia was that the community liked them. And the community said, why don't we get the Minister of Health here and tell him how good this is? So Michael Wooldridge, who was the Minister of Health at that time, visited the Riverland. And instead of the university saying, this is a really great idea, we think you should expand this and give the universities more money, which will just be seen as self-interest by the politicians, quite rightly, the local mayors, the local school teachers, the local journalists, the local community, the patients, came to the minister and said, this needs to be multiplied. Within a year, what was an investment of $180,000 a year was up to almost $200 million per year, as this was rolled out across the country. The community are our greatest advocates. In fact, they are really our only advocates that matter to those people who are looking to fund us. But don't be frightened also about understanding the sociology within an organisation. So it's the sociology without that can affect us, the sociology within. Who are the power brokers within your institution? And what do they value that your program can offer? Again, it may not be the reason you developed your initiative or your idea, but what can you offer to those who are in power that they can see a benefit as well? Because collaboration and sharing within an organisation is far more likely to bring change once you're looking at substantial change than trying to do it in opposition. Competition for dollars, we usually lose. Collaboration, we more often win. But there's that extra element that the Indigenous people ask us to understand, and that's the spiritual nature of organisations or of we as human beings. For me, I've heard that often expressed in terms of country, and you heard tonight about a welcome to country. That's not an arbitrary thing. That's not an accidental use of language. That is a very intentional welcome to who we are, who we have been, and who we will be. That spiritual attachment to country is woven into the fabric of the Indigenous understanding of humanity and of the world. The country that our institutions are located in is also real and important. And as many of us are looking to try and move our institutions out of their campuses, their current country, into other areas of country, We need to do that with an understanding of what it means to leave your country and be respectful of that for those who have only known a campus life. And we also have to have ourselves, I believe, as the innovators, an attachment to that new place that we are asking the university to go. So for me, it was very important that the places that we looked at, our postgraduate innovation, our undergraduate, our selection processes, all of those things, were actually the country that I was working in, the country that I had skin in the game. So think about where you are looking for your innovation, and if you don't have that, find people that do to take the leadership, because it will require that passion. It will require that this isn't just an educational innovation, this is actually about the life and death of our community. It'll require that level of investment to actually see through a lot of the blocks that will come your way. So there's the biological understanding, there's the psychological understanding of our institutions, the social understanding of our institutions, the spiritual understanding of our institutions. Let's go back to Frank and Marjorie Drew, who went from Melbourne to Roebourne. The war came, they were split up, they had a few kids. Marjorie never practiced medicine again after she left Roebourne. In fact, the family somewhat disintegrated. How many of our colleagues do we find burn out as innovators? What's a great idea somehow has real adverse effects within the family or the friendships of those people who are so committed to them. But Marjorie and Frank's legacy was longer than just the time they had spent in Roebourne. Their first grandchild, 25 years later, was me. And I now recognise that where I am in terms of working in rural medicine, in terms of having a passion for Indigenous people and communities and the underserved, is not an accident. And neither is it something that I have invented myself. It's part of my bio, psycho, socio, spiritual inheritance from those people who have gone before me. And that understanding has been a buttress to me when things have been difficult. It's been a resilience factor for me and for my family when we have paid the cost of saving the world. Recognising that this isn't just something that we are doing, but it is actually part of a heritage that started before us and will go further than us. Who are the people in your lives, not necessarily your blood, but who are the people in your lives that are part of your heritage? And who are the people that you are now investing into that will be 25 years later the people who make even greater contributions to the people that you are wanting to work with? So if we want, we can ignore our biology, we can ignore what we eat, we can ignore our psychology, we can ignore our mental health, we can ignore our sociology, we can ignore our friends and just become workaholics. We can ignore our spirituality. But we do those things as innovators and as innovative organisations at our peril. Back to Harari, who says the network and all our institutions are legal fictions of our imagination, our collective imagination. Could it be that if we embrace fully both at the institutional level and at our personal level the bio, psycho, socio, spiritual nature that we have been given, that we can reimagine our organisations, we can reimagine our initiatives together in such a way that perhaps even our imaginations can't contain the impact they may have on our world. Thank you. Okay. Yeah.
I always enjoy listening to you speak, Paul. I find you can combine words into very artful stories, reflections, political insights that stay with me for a long time. And I'm sure the words you've shared with us tonight will resonate with us as we spend time in the next few days getting to know each other, hearing the stories that we tell, and thinking about what the future might look like in our sphere of influence. So I really want to give you a very heartfelt thank you. Please accept this gift. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the conclusion of our first event for this conference. If you have a glass in your hand, you may want to raise it to toast the success of our conference. To the TUFH Conference 2019. Thank you.